Chapter 11 Innate Level 20. You are listening at novelfull.audio. While the three of them were rushing back, the Wuhuan Hall in Notting City was not idle either. Although Su Yuntao didn't find Tang San and Tang Lu when he went to Notting College, he learned from the principal that they and the master went to the soul-hunting forest to hunt for soul rings. After he reported the matter to Matthew Noah asked Su Yuntao to lead some people to wait at the exit of the soul-hunting forest, and at the same time asked another person with similar status to Su Yuntao to lead a small team. The troops rushed towards Holy Soul Village, preparing to investigate Tang Hao. Logically speaking, the emergence of innate super soul power requires not only super talent, but also extremely noble bloodline. And the innate super soul power that appeared now actually came from an ordinary small mountain village, which made Matthew Noah suspicious. What's more, according to Su Yuntao, this martial soul with innate super soul power is still a useless martial soul like Lan Yin Chao. This is simply impossible. Matthew Noah guessed that either this innate super soul power has a second martial soul that is so powerful that it is abnormal, or that his bloodline is extremely noble and excellent. The specific details need to be proven by facts. It seemed that it was almost impossible for Tang Lu to continue hiding. However, just when Grandmaster, Tang San, and Tang Lu were about to arrive at the entrance to the soul-hunting forest, Tang Lu suddenly received a message from the system. Ding! There are people from the spirit hall at the exit of the soul-hunting forest waiting for the host and the three of them. Please be careful. The host is advised to leave immediately and let Master and Tang San cover for you. Hearing this, Tang Lu was shocked. What is supposed to come has come. But he didn't expect it to happen so quickly. At that moment, he stopped. Grandmaster and Tang San turned around and looked at him doubtfully. Xiao Lu, what's wrong? Tang San asked aloud, looking at Tang Lu who looked uncertain. Tang Lu looked very hesitant, as if he wanted to say something. After a while, his expression became firm and he said, Brother, Master, actually I have something to hide from you. The master said nothing and waited quietly for his next words. Tang San also listened quietly. Master, your guess is correct. I do have more than one martial spirit. I'm sorry for hiding it from you. He bowed lightly to the master to express his apology. Oh, then what is your second martial spirit? The master's eyes lit up and he became interested. Xiao Lu's second martial spirit is the same as mine, it's a small hammer. Tang San said. The master nodded secretly and thought to himself, sure enough, Xiao San and Xiao Lu are both that person's children. Yes, my second martial spirit is also a small hammer, but I won't show it to you now. Tang Lu said, the most important thing I have hidden from you is, in fact, I am not born with full soul power. Tang San still looked a little confused, not understanding why he said this. But the master seemed to have thought of something, and his expression instantly became horrified. Innate super soul power? The master looked at Tang Lu in surprise. Tang Lu nodded slowly. I am actually innate with level 20 super soul power. Seeing Tang Lu admit it, the master's expression became even more horrified. Teacher, can one's innate soul power also exceed the 10th level? Tang San asked curiously at this time. He doesn't have the plot advantage like Tang Lu, nor does he understand the meaning of innate super soul power like the master, so he seems a little indifferent at the moment. Moreover, Tang Lu was his younger brother, and his younger brother was highly talented, so he was very happy. Yes, under certain specific conditions, it is possible for innate super soul power to appear, but it is very harsh. Currently, there are only two known innate super soul powers on the entire continent. One is Xiao Lu, and the other is, he should have already reached the level of Soul Sect or Soul King at a very young age. The master's face became even stiffer. A look of surprise appeared on Tang San's face. After saying the previous sentence, the master suddenly thought of something. If Tang San and Tang Lu are really that person's children, then judging from the relationship between that person and Wuhuan Palace, if it is really exposed that Tang Lu has innate 20-level super soul power, then Tang San and Tang Lu were almost in a certain death situation. Thinking of this, the master's breathing became faster, but who would have thought that what Tang Lu said next would make the master even more horrified? Besides, just after I absorbed the first spirit ring, I found that I seemed to have awakened a martial spirit again. Tang Lu said slowly. What? This time, it was Tang San and the master who exclaimed together. The third martial spirit. The master's eyes changed when he looked at Tang Lu, his eyes mixed with horror, weirdness, shock and joy. Tang Lu nodded heavily. Yes, the third martial spirit. After this third martial spirit awakened, I found that I could feel the beings that were hostile to me within a certain range. And now, outside, I felt that there were more than a dozen people exuding hostility towards me. They were probably waiting for me to come out. Did you not reveal your innate super soul power when you first awakened your martial soul to test your soul power? The master asked immediately. Yes, I controlled it at that time and was not discovered immediately. Tang Lu said. Then now, the people in Wuhuan Palace must have discovered that Xiao Lu has innate super soul power. The reason why they didn't come into the soul-hunting forest immediately to look for us is probably because they still don't know whose children Xiao San and Xiao Lu are. Again. In addition, they probably don't know whether the innate super soul power is Xiao San or Xiao Lu, so they haven't taken action yet. In a few thoughts, the master thought all this clearly, and then said to Tang Lu, the people outside should be people from Wuhuan Palace. Xiao Lu, you must not go out now. Teacher, are the people from Wuhuan Palace going to do harm to my brother? Tang San spoke at this moment, with cold murderous intent already gleaming in the depths of his eyes. Regardless of whether he is from the Wuhuan Palace or some other palace, as long as he dares to harm his family, he will make the other party pay an extremely heavy price. Not for the time being, but it shouldn't be long. Moreover, not only Xiao Lu is in danger, but you are also in danger. The master looked at Tang San with a serious expression. The current solution is for you and I to go out first and let Xiao Lu will stay here first. Only after we lure away the people from Wuhuan Hall outside can Xiao Lu come out. But, wouldn't it be dangerous to leave Xiao Lu here alone? Tang San was a little worried. Chapter 12. Start making up nonsense. You are listening at novelfull.audio. This is already the outermost edge of the soul-hunting forest, and the traces of the soul beasts are basically invisible. The only thing we have to worry about is whether the group of people from the spirit hall outside will come in to look for Xiao Lu after we leave. Once that time comes, Xiao Lu will have no choice but to hide deep in the forest. On one side are the people from Wuhuan Palace, and on the other side have to face the soul beasts that may appear at any time. Such a situation is dangerous. The master also looked solemn. Obviously, he didn't have a good way to solve the current situation. After all, he was only a second-level soul master. Don't worry about this, I have a solution. Tang Lu spoke again. Tang San and the master both looked at him. My third martial spirit seems to be very special. I don't need to take the initiative to hunt soul beasts to add soul rings. Tang Lu said, and then prepared to release his third martial spirit. What do you mean? The master had some guesses, but when he saw the two soul rings rising from the soles of Tang Lu's feet, his pupils shrank and he couldn't help but take a breath of cold air. Tang Lu's eyes lit up slightly, and the aura emanating from his whole body suddenly became ethereal, as if he had been banished to earth. Then, two circles of soul rings that were slightly larger than normal soul rings and were the same blue-black color as his hair and eyes slowly rose from his feet and pulsed around his body. My current soul power should be level 23. Tang Lu said. The master's eyes were completely attracted by the two soul rings around Tang Lu that were beyond the soul master's understanding. Even Tang San was attracted by the beautiful and enchanting blue-black color of the soul ring. Moreover, he could also feel an extremely close aura from Tang Lu's soul ring. This third martial spirit of yours is definitely the first of its kind in mainland China. First of all, just being able to generate a spirit ring by yourself is shocking enough. What's more, the color of your spirit ring is an unprecedented blue-black color. It's completely beyond the pale. Our understanding of normal soul rings. The master said excitedly, as if a fanatical researcher had discovered a brand new research topic, but now is not the time to talk about this. You said you have a solution, are you just talking about it? Is it related to your third martial spirit? Tang Lu nodded. Well, the first soul skill of my martial spirit can leave a mark on people, and the second soul skill allows me to teleport to the person marked by me instantly. Tang San's eyes lit up. If that's the case, then the teacher and I can go out first, and once it's safe, you can teleport directly to us. By the way, is there a distance limit for your teleportation? Tang Lu shook his head. No, it's just that if the distance is too far, once I teleport over, I will enter a period of weakness. But don't worry, you can go back to the academy directly, and then I will teleport again. The fastest it will take us to reach the school is 2 hours. To be on the safe side, Xiaolu, please wait 3 hours before teleporting. The master said. Okay. Tang Lu nodded. Then Xiao San, after we go out later, we will act according to the situation. The master turned to Tang San again and said. Tang San nodded vigorously. After all, it was related to his brother's safety. Then, Tang San took off his sleeve arrow, gave it to Tang Lu, and put it on for him. Use it when you are in danger. I have taught you the method. Tang Lu nodded and showed a smile. After the master gave Tang Lu some medicinal powder that could drive away spirit beasts, he took Tang San away. Of course, Tang Lu didn't forget to leave a mark on Tang San and the master. Brother, if people from Wuhuan Palace ask about me, just tell them that I was taken away by my father. Tang Lu shouted. Okay, be careful. Tang San turned around and waved to him. After receiving Tang Lu's response, Tang San turned around again and walked out of the soul-hunting forest with the master, his expression suddenly becoming more solemn. At this time, Tang Lu also turned around and walked towards the depths of the forest, preparing to find a place with a good view and convenient for his escape. While observing the movements of the master, Tang San and the people in Wuhuan Hall, he could also encounter other people. Escape in time when in danger. After searching around, Tang Lu finally identified a relatively tall tree. Relying on the physical fitness of a great soul master and the Tang sect martial arts of controlling cranes and capturing dragons and mystic jade hands, he quickly climbed to the top of the tree, and then activated Zgmo Tong looked out of the soul-hunting forest. Although Tang Lu was not as diligent in cultivating the purple demon eye as Tang San was, he still had the state of panoramic view, and there would be no problem in looking further after activating it. No, he immediately found Tang San and the master who had just left the soul-hunting forest. Soon after, he saw a group of people wearing uniforms from Wuhuan Palace surrounding the two of them. The leader was none other than Su Yuntao, who had met Tang San and awakened his martial spirit for him. Although Tang Lu could directly obtain the field of vision around Tang San and the master through the mark, it required him to close his eyes and concentrate. But now that he is in the soul-hunting forest, he needs to be constantly wary of threats from soul beasts, so naturally there is no room for carelessness. Outside, Su Yuntao had already started talking with Tang San and the master. Grandmaster held Tang San's hand and looked at the people in the spirit hall who stopped them without any change in his eyes. His expression remained the same as before, and he said calmly, I wonder what the spirit hall deacon did to stop us. Su Yuntao, who had received Matthew Noah's warning in advance and had some knowledge of the master's origins, looked very respectful at this time. You are the master, right? I have long admired your name. I am Su Yuntao. No need, we can't talk about a famous name yet. Tell me, what do you want from us? The master looked at him and said. Actually, we came here today because we have something to do with this little brother Tang San. Although Su Yuntao is still young, his ability to observe words and emotions is not weak. It was known beforehand that the master would accompany Tang San to obtain the spirit ring today. Now that the two of them had come out of the soul-hunting forest, they had probably obtained the spirit ring as well. Although Tang San was young, he was probably a spirit master now, only one spirit ring behind him, so he called Tang San little brother. Even in his opinion, it wouldn't be that easy for Tang San to reach the level of a great soul master. The master glanced at Tang San and noticed that Tang San had just turned his eyes away from him. He felt relieved and understood that Tang San had received his hint. Uncle, what do you want from me? Tang San looked at Su Yuntao, his expression not showing any signs of strangeness. Little brother, I wonder if you still remember me. Su Yuntao had a smile on his face. Tang San nodded. I still remember the martial spirit you awakened for me. Chapter 13 Muddle Through. You are listening at NovelFull.audio. The smile on Su Yuntao's face became a little brighter. I came here mainly because I wanted to find you and ask about your brother. We went to Notting College to find him, and the principal said that you two are here to get the soul ring. His words revealed an important piece of information to Grandmaster and Tang San. Wuhuan Palace knew that Tang San and Tang Lu had both signed up at Notting Academy, so, in a flash of thought, Tang San came up with an explanation based on the current situation. The master watched quietly from the side, wondering what kind of explanation Tang San was going to use to hide it, so that he could follow his thoughts closely. Uncle, do you want to know the news about my brother? Tang San asked aloud. Yes, that's the little brother with blue hair. Isn't he with you? Su Yuntao said, pretending to be curious. Tang San shook his head. No. My brother was originally going to come with us to get the spirit ring, but on the way here yesterday morning, we met my father and took my brother away. The expression on Su Yuntao's face froze. Why did your father take your brother away? Doesn't your father know that Notting College has started school? Speaking of this, yesterday Tang San and Tang Lu's fathers asked me to handle the withdrawal procedures for Tang Lu. The master spoke at this time. Su Yuntao frowned slightly after hearing the master's words. The previous master's words not only told him that Tang Lu would not continue to study at Notting Academy, but also confirmed that Tang San's words were true. My brother has been in poor health since he was a child and has been suffering from hidden diseases. Yesterday, my father came to us and said that he had found a doctor who could cure my brother and wanted to take him to see a doctor. Tang San said. So, your father took your brother to see a doctor? Su Yuntao's frown deepened. What kind of disease requires you to go through the withdrawal procedures? Does that mean they won't be able to come back in a short time? Tang San nodded. The master also took over the words at this time. Their father told me that he was going to take Tang Lu to live temporarily where the doctor was, and at the same time let Tang Lu go to school there. He didn't tell me the specific place. Mistress, did your father tell you? Tang San shook his head. Dad said that they might not come back after they leave. After my first semester vacation, he will pick me up and have a look, and then come back to school. Sorry, little brother, can I ask what disease your brother is suffering from? Su Yuntao asked again. This time, the master said before Tang San could, I'm also a little curious. Xiao San, your brother shouldn't have any physical defects, right? Otherwise, he wouldn't have been born with full soul power. After being reminded by the master, Tang San temporarily changed his words, nodded and said, yes. My brother has been weak since he was a child. Although he was cured later, he was left with a hidden disease, which caused him some mental problems. At the end of his speech, Tang San showed an unspeakable expression. Can you tell me more specifically? Su Yuntao continued to ask, but then he saw Tang San's somewhat ugly look, and immediately realized that his question was a bit excessive. Sorry, if it's not convenient to say it, forget it. Only then did Tang San look better, shook his head, and sighed. It doesn't matter what I really want to say. It's just that my brother will be in a daze from time to time, and it's hard to concentrate. And sometimes he will be in a daze for more than half an hour, and his mental state will be worse after that. It's so hazy, and in severe cases, it can cause coma. After saying this, Su Yuntao understood. There is something wrong with the relationship. Thinking back carefully, when Tang Lu awakened his martial spirit, he seemed to have been in a daze. Okay, I'll bother you too. But, little brother Tang San, if there is any news about your brother, please come to Wuhuan Hall and tell me. Su Yuntao said, preparing to let Tang San and the master leave. If there is nothing else, we will leave first. The master nodded and said. Goodbye, uncle. Tang San waved to Su Yuntao, and then left with the master. After watching the master and Tang San get on a carriage, Su Yuntao immediately ordered the people around him, you guys should immediately go into the soul-hunting forest in groups and have a look. You don't need to go too deep, just look for them in the outer areas nearby. Once you search, any suspicious characters you encounter will be brought back to Wuhuan Hall. Yes. After watching his men enter the forest, Su Yuntao also found a carriage and prepared to return to Nodding City. On the one hand, it is natural to report the situation here to Master Matthew Noah of Wuhuan Palace. On the other hand, I also wanted to follow Grandmaster and Tang San to see the situation, even though he had basically accepted Tang San's words in his heart. Teacher, Su Yuntao is following you. Among the carriages in front, Tang San, who quietly made a hole in the back of the carriage with his pocket knife, retracted his gaze through the small hole and said to the master beside him. Well, now let's see if Xiaolu can escape. The master's expression was still solemn. In the soul-hunting forest, after seeing the master and Tang San successfully deceive everyone in the spirit hall, Tang Lu quickly climbed down the tree and ran towards the depths of the forest. Of course, his steps were light and left no footprints on the ground. He also dealt with the marks he made on the tree. Similarly, he also took care of the traces he made when he was with Master Tang San, minimizing the possibility of being discovered. Naturally, it is difficult for him to take care of every aspect as his actual age is no more than 22 years old. Fortunately, he has a system that can do nothing but give suggestions, but he is still quite careful. The people in Wuhuan Palace have believed what Tang San has said, and they won't go too far into the forest if they come in to search. It is recommended that the host enters the forest for 1,000 meters and then moves 1,000 meters to the east to avoid Wuhuan Palace's attacks. People are chasing people. In order to speed up the travel and reduce the traces left, it is recommended that the host uses the void spirit control. After receiving the system's prompt, Tang Lu naturally followed the instructions, released his martial spirit, and at the same time used his first soul skill on himself. The ethereal blue silver emperor in the palm of his left hand instantly rolled back and wrapped around his left arm. Then Tang Lu was no longer disturbed by the terrain and penetrated directly in a straight line. At the same time, the people from Wuhuan Palace also entered the soul-hunting forest. Although it was basically certain that no one would be found inside, they still followed the principle of doing their duty more or less so that they could return to work, so they started a search that was barely serious. But it was a search with the entrance as the center. Deep into the forest was a fan-shaped area with a radius of 500 meters, and then the team gathered and left. After receiving the safety prompt from the system, Tang Lu breathed a sigh of relief and rested against a tree. Now just wait for 3 hours to pass and teleport. Chapter 14 5,000 Years Mandala Snake. You are listening at novelfull.audio. But at this moment, Tang Lu, who had not yet taken a few breaths, received the system prompt again. Ding! Please prepare the host for battle. A mandala snake with a cultivation level of 5,800 years is approaching. It is expected to arrive in 5 seconds. It is recommended that the host use the control of the virtual spirit immediately and teleport away. Tang Lu only had time to curse secretly, and then released the void spirit control on himself. Almost at the second when the blue-silver emperor's grass blades rolled back, a purple figure immediately passed through him, and then stopped not far from him. Tang Lu looked at the mandala snake's raised head, and looked at the bulge on its head that looked like an unopened flower bud with fear. The 1,000-year mandala snake was dozens of times more powerful in terms of speed and poison than the century-old mandala snake that Tang San hunted. Although Tang Lu was now at level 23, it was almost impossible to defeat this mandala snake with a cultivation level of nearly 6,000 years. The nearly 6,000-year-old soul beast is already extremely close to the soul sect among soul masters. How can Tang Lu, a great soul master, compare with the soul sect? What about the protagonist's aura? That thing is on Tang San, not on him. What's more, Tang Lu's actual combat experience is almost zero. In just such a short while, the mandala snake launched another attack on Tang Lu. The speed seemed to Tang Lu to be as fast as lightning, and he had no time to react. Fortunately, in the state of ethereal control, he doesn't have to worry too much about the mandala snake's attack for the time being. Because neither the body nor the poison of the datura snake can touch him. Besides teleporting away, is there any other way? Tang Lu frowned and asked in his mind. Seeing that the mandala snake couldn't attack him for a while, he didn't panic much now. and he didn't really want to disrupt the previously discussed plan. The mandala snake next to it saw that it could not attack Tang Lu and made no further moves. It just sat on the side and stared at him eagerly. If the host doesn't want to leave, the only option is to fight. It is recommended that the host immediately leaves multiple marks around it, and uses the low consumption of soul power to teleport within 100 meters to deal with the mandala snake, and try to leave as many marks on the mandala snake as possible. Mark, and then send it to a place far enough away. During this period, the host is asked to remember to maintain the control of the ethereal spirit. After successfully sending the mandala snake away using this method, if it is attacked by the spirit beast again, the host will basically no longer have any resistance. Ability: the probability of death exceeds 80%. In addition, there are still 15 seconds left for the control of the virtual spirit to expire, so the host please calculate the time to replenish it. While reading, Tang Lu relied on the system's countdown in his mind to prepare to release the void spirit control. When there were only 2 seconds left in the void spirit control, he frantically began to release the void spirit control on himself. In this way, after 2 seconds, he could have a 1-minute virtual state again, minimizing mistakes as much as possible. Small. Then can I run out of the soul-hunting forest through the protection of the void spirit control? While communicating with the system in his mind, Tang Lu also stood up, ready to take action. The mandala snake next to him saw his move and immediately pounced on him, but it passed through him again. At this time, Tang Lu switched to the third martial soul Howlan spell, and immediately left a mark on the tree trunk behind him. Although he switched to the third martial soul at this time, the effect of the void spirit control still existed on him. He only needed to switch back to the void spirit blue's silver emperor when the time was almost up and release the first soul skill. It is recommended that the distance between each mark of the host should not be less than 25 meters and should not exceed 105 meters. The system gave advice and answered his question. The people in the Wuhuan Palace have not gone far. If the host takes the Mando, if Luo Shi rushes out, the chance of being discovered is over 70%. All right. Tang Lu glanced at the Datura snake not far away, calmed down his emotions, and then followed the ghostly footsteps and ran towards a tree 50 meters away. Seeing him running away, the mandala snake immediately chased after him. Due to the speed difference, it caught up with Tang Lu in the blink of an eye and passed through him again. Tang Lu didn't dare to neglect. After leaving a mark on the target tree, he switched back to the void spirit blue's silver emperor and kept releasing his first soul skill on himself. After regaining the virtual state for another minute, he started his marking journey, which can be said to be quite careful, since the mandala snake is a very patient spirit beast and will not easily give up its identified prey. It has been following Tang Lu, attacking from time to time. Although it could not hit Tang Lu, while Tang Lu was marking the trees, he kept talking to the Datura snake, although the Datura snake didn't respond at all. I said, "Brother Snake, you see neither of us can defeat the other. Why don't we each take a step back? You choose the east, I choose the west, and then move forward without looking back. Just turn around and leave, okay? Although I am very helpless about the current situation, I still want to thank you, Brother Snake, for your favor towards me. Thank you for being so persistent with me. But I am really not interested in you, so why should I be so entangled? It's better to let it go. This is good for everyone." Just like this, stubbornly, Tang Lu left marks on almost all the trees in this area. However, his own soul power was also consumed by more than 20%, among them, Howlan's mark does not consume soul power when marking it. The soul power he consumes now is due to the control of the virtual spirit. During this period, Tang Lu also tried to leave marks on the mandala snake, but every time he got a little closer, the mandala snake would immediately move away and attack him, and then appear in another place. He couldn't even touch the opponent's tail. So after several attempts, Tang Lu had to give up temporarily. Fortunately, he has not gained nothing after such a long time. Now that he has been able to seamlessly connect the void spirit control, he has naturally given up on the trickery he used before. The host has basically been marked and can now start trying to teleport. Now, it is recommended that the host teleport 50 meters behind the mandala snake. After receiving the instructions from the system, Tang Lu switched to the third martial spirit, and then the second blue-black spirit ring flashed. Almost at the same time, he disappeared in a burst of blue-black light, and almost at the same time appeared in a blue-black light 50 meters away, transmission without any time gap. It was as if Tang Lu was already in that place. Tang Lu, who felt the teleportation effect, also looked shocked. This soul skill is so powerful that the Datura snake on the other side also discovered Tang Lu after a short period of shock and confusion. It neighed and came to Tang Lu like lightning. Chapter 15. The third martial spirit is indeed a bug. You are listening at novelfull.audio. But the moment Tang Lu saw the mandala snake moving, he decisively launched the teleportation, disappeared in the blue-black light again, and appeared in another blue-black light. The consumption of innate first-level soul power is equivalent to no consumption. Feeling that the soul power in his body was only slightly reduced, the shock in Tang Lu's heart became more intense, and what followed was ecstasy. Am I going to be invincible? With this transmission speed and soul power consumption, it will be difficult for me to be hit by other people's soul skills in the future. Tang Lu thought happily in his heart, and then his eyes changed when he looked at the mandala snake. Brother Snake, why don't you come and test it with me? Looking at the mandala snake charging towards him, Tang Lu disappeared into a blue-black light again. Since he has left marks on the surrounding trees, and the trees here are very dense, in theory, he can appear anywhere in this area at any time. So, next, blue-black light flashed around the mandala snake in the woods, and Tang Lu's figure was almost invisible. Because the speed of the mandala snake was also very fast, almost every time Tang Lu had just teleported once, he had to start the next one immediately, which resulted in a scene of continuous flashes of light. About 5 minutes later, Tang Lu teleported and distanced himself from the mandala snake. In the past few minutes, he has become familiar with the teleportation operation, so he no longer activates the control of the ethereal spirit. He can avoid the attack of the mandala snake by teleportation alone. It can't go on like this. We can't touch it at all. After another teleportation, Tang Lu once again distanced himself from the rushing mandala snake and murmured. It was not that he had not thought about walking a little farther first, luring the mandala snake there and then teleporting back, but he was told by the system that mandala snakes have a sensitive sense of smell. Unless the host moves more than 1,000 meters, the mandala snake will still remain. It can be retrieved. In addition, if the host's current teleportation exceeds 1,000 meters, it will consume 90% of the maximum soul power, and then the host will enter a period of weakness. This paragraph was rejected. It is recommended that the host activates the control of the ethereal spirit and allows the mandala snake to pass through the body, and try to use Howland mark. The system's words made Tang Lu stunned for a moment, and he almost missed the mandala snake's attack. What do you mean? You want me to mark the mandala snake when it passes through it? Yes. Tang Lu's eyes lit up. Yes, the prerequisite for marking is skin contact, but if the datura snake penetrates itself, wouldn't it be considered skin contact? Why didn't you tell me earlier? Tang Lu began to complain about the system. The host didn't ask. In addition, it's best for the host to try these techniques on his own. The system replied, Tang Lu. But the system made sense, so he stopped arguing with the system. At the moment, he took advantage of the gap before the mandala snake rushed over, and immediately added a void spirit control for himself, and then stood there waiting for the mandala snake to come over. Come here, brother snake, let me give you a mark. That he waved his hand towards the mandala snake opposite and shouted loudly. The second the datura snake heard his shout, it rushed towards him. Tang Lu, who had already switched to the third spirit and was ready, kept trying to release the first spirit skill. Then, at the moment when the mandala snake passed through his body, the first circle of blue-black soul ring light flashed quietly. Marking successful. However, due to the undetectable nature of Howland's mark, the mandala snake did not move at all. After passing through Tang Lu's body, it coiled up again and stared at Tang Lu unmoved. Now, please let the host choose whether to send the datura snake away. The system's voice sounded again. Wait a moment, I want to get familiar with the power of the familiar mark first. Tang Lu said in his heart, and at the same time walked to a tree and sat down cross-legged. During this period, the Mandala snake naturally attacked him again because of his actions. But because of the control of the virtual spirit, Tang Lu was immune to injury. Previously, the system's words reminded him that it was best to familiarize himself with the effectiveness of soul skills and the techniques for using them. In addition, the system's description of his Haolan mark showed that he could do many unexpected things through the mark. He was also curious about what these so-called unexpected things were, and now, there is a marked Mandala snake, and hundreds of marked trees for him to do experiments. In addition, now he only needs to supplement himself with a relatively safe ethereal control from time to time. Status, so why not test the effectiveness of the mark now? Tang Lu closed his eyes, and then his martial soul switched to Haolan's spell, silently sensing the power of Haolan's mark. Of course, he did not forget to ask the system to remind him when the void spirit control was about to expire. After his mind was immersed, with a thought, Tang Lu felt a slight dizziness in his mind, and at the same time, a feeling of separation and flying followed closely. It was a bit like sitting on an airplane and watching the scenery below gradually shrink. Tang Lu found that dozens of blue-black football-sized light groups appeared around his dark field of vision. As his field of vision rose, these blue-black lights appeared. The group gradually became smaller and smaller, and finally became like stars scattered in the night sky. Tang Lu found that he seemed to have a vision at this time again. This vision was the dark sky and the blue-black stars scattered in the sky that he was seeing now. And he clearly has his eyes closed now. Turning his eyes slightly, Tang Lu saw that in the distance among the dense starlight, there were two stars moving closely together slowly, at an almost undetectable speed. That should be the third brother and the master, he thought so. Then, he noticed that his gaze, or rather his consciousness, was rapidly approaching the two lonely stars. In his eyes, the two stars gradually grew larger and the light became dazzling. Then, when his consciousness fell on the two stars, the surroundings suddenly brightened and light returned. The surrounding space looks like the interior of a horse-drawn carriage. On the seat, a middle-aged man sat next to a 6-year-old boy. Their expressions looked a little solemn and slightly worried. They are naturally Grandmaster and Tang San. Is this the field of view from which the mark is obtained? At this time, Tang Lu was watching Tang San and the master from a god's perspective. Because of the obstruction of the carriage, he could only see what was inside the carriage. However, if he is willing, the angle of view can be raised a little further, so that he can see the situation within 50 meters around him. Therefore, he also noticed the carriage behind Tang San and Grandmaster. Chapter 16 Haolan Mark. You are listening at novelfull.audio. Tang Lu, who had completely witnessed the situation outside the soul-hunting forest, naturally knew that Su Yuntao was sitting inside. Since there was still a persistent snake to deal with, Tang Lu's consciousness didn't stay here too long. The angle of view continued to rise again, and at the same time, the surrounding area gradually fell into darkness as the angle of view increased. But the master and Tang San's bodies lit up with blue-black light. In the end, the figures of the master and Tang San disappeared into the darkness, but the blue-black stars remained. Returning to the star-studded side again, this time, Tang Lu's consciousness returned and did not fall on any star. Those blue and black light groups were scattered around, and there seemed to be a faint connection. It felt like these light groups could be annihilated and destroyed according to his will. And those objects attached to the light group it can also be controlled and controlled, even, being played with. Tang Lu opened his eyes, the field of vision brightened, but at this time, there were faint blue-black lights on the surrounding tree trunks and on the snake in front of him. That is the power of Haolan Mark. The next moment, the blue-black light around him quickly disappeared, leaving only the blue-black light on the snake in his eyes, and it was gradually getting brighter. The body of the Mandala snake seemed to have become illusory, and the blue-black light in its body became dazzling, and finally turned into a complex, mysterious rune that revealed a mysterious and primitive atmosphere. Haolan Mark. Looking at the mysterious runes, everything about Mandala snake became extremely clear in Tang Lu's mind. The vague thoughts coming from its brain, the flow of blood in its blood vessels, the peristalsis of its body muscles, the rhythm of its scales, and the surge of soul power in its body. Clear as day. Moreover, as if with just a thought, he could make its blood flow backwards, its muscles stiffen, its scales fall off, and its soul power stagnate. At this moment, in Tang Lu's consciousness, the mandala snake seemed to have become a toy that he could play with at will. Even if he wanted to, he could make the toy explode on the spot. He subconsciously raised his right hand and pointed it at the mandala snake from a distance. Seeing his actions, the mandala snake rushed forward again. However, in Tang Lu's eyes, its originally extremely fast movements were now slower, faster and slower, and seemed to be still. His blue-black eyes actually lit up at this moment, emitting the same blue-black light. They were extremely strange and had a very strange beauty. The next moment, the mandala snake stopped, strangely still in mid-air, as if the space was stagnant. The mandala snake's body, which was more than 10 meters long, stood still forcibly. No, it was still struggling, because its body was twisting slightly, but the amplitude was not obvious. Its eyes also showed a look of panic and even fear, which was indeed a rare emotion for a ruthless and ferocious soul beast like the mandala snake. Tang Lu's expression turned pale very quickly, but the blue-black light released by his eyes became even more intense. He closed his palm and made a fist. As a result, purple light began to bloom from the body of the mandala snake. That is its soul power. There were cracked mirror-like textures on its body surface, and those purple rays of light were revealed from these gaps. The next moment, the mandala snake shattered into pieces. It shattered in the burst of rich purple light. Minced meat was scattered all over the floor, and blood splattered 3 feet. A 5,800-year-old soul beast died just like that. Even though it died so casually, it was still a snake-like soul beast that had been practicing for 5,800 years. The method of death seems simple, but the power of death is still not simple. Just after the mandala snake was violently cut into pieces of flesh all over the floor by its own soul power, its violent soul power exploded. The surging purple light arrived in front of Tang Lu, whose face was as golden as paper, almost in the blink of an eye. 3 hours is definitely not a short time. When the carriage arrived at Notting College, the master took Tang San to his office. Su Yuntao saw that they did not follow them after they returned to Notting College, and asked the driver to take him to the Wuhuan Palace. On the other side, Tang San and the master were waiting for Tang Lu quietly in the office. Because they didn't know Tang Lu's safety, neither of them spoke, and the atmosphere seemed very solemn for a while. This wait is an hour. The master's calculation was right. It took them 2 hours to return to Notting College from the soul-hunting forest, and Tang Lu appeared in a blue-black light at the 3rd hour. However, his expression was extremely pale at this moment, without any color at all. Moreover, the breath on his body was extremely weak, as if he would die in the next moment. Tang San helped Tang Lu, who was on the verge of collapse, in time. "Xiao Lu, are you okay?" Tang San asked with concern. Tang Lu shook his head, forced a smile, and said, "It's okay, it's just that the teleportation distance is a little far, and the soul power is exhausted." Tang San breathed a sigh of relief. "You didn't encounter any danger in the forest, right?" Tang Lu shook his head. "Those people from the spirit hall didn't notice me, so I went a little deeper into the forest, then calculated when the time was up, and teleported back. It's good that you're back safely. However, Xiao Lu, now you can't stay at Notting College. What do you want to do?" The master's expression also relaxed a lot and he said. Tang Lu first bowed to the master with Tang San's support and said loudly, "Master, thank you." A trace of smile and relief flashed in the master's eyes, and he did not speak, quietly waiting for his next words. "I plan to take a rest first to recover my soul power, and then at night, I will rush back to the Holy Soul Village under the cover of darkness," Tang Lu said. "Xiao Lu, do you want to go back to find Dad?" Tang San asked. "Yes." Tang Lu nodded, and at the same time glanced at the master with deep meaning. The master felt enlightened. Indeed, Xiao Lu is safest now only if he stays with that person. "Okay, you stay here to recover your soul power first, and I'll help you prepare," the master said, and then walked out of the office. "Xiao Lu, I'll go back with you tonight." Tang San was still a little worried about Tang Lu. "No, brother, if you go back with me, wouldn't you be exposed if you are discovered? Now, you just need to stay here and study, and I will be fine. After all, my father is at home." Tang Sik said with a smile on his face. Tang San nodded and helped Tang Lu sit on a chair. "By the way, I'll return the sleeve arrow to you." Tang Lu took off the sleeve arrow from his wrist and handed it back to Tang San. Chapter 17 Farewell. You are listening at novelfull.audio. Why don't you take it with you so that you can defend yourself if you encounter danger on the road? Tang San grabbed the arrow in his sleeve and hesitated. Don't worry, brother. If we encounter irresistible danger, I will just teleport back. Tang Lu smiled and said, while leaving a mark on the chair under him, when encountering irresistible danger, I will just teleport back. If there is any danger, I will teleport here. Master is here and will find me in time. Don't worry, I will be fine. As he spoke, Tang Lu also pulled his legs to sit cross-legged on the chair, making a meditative posture in preparation for recovering his soul power. By the way, brother, don't you go and see Xiao Wu and the others? Tang Lu closed his eyes and opened them again shortly after, and said to Tang San, seeing Tang San's hesitant expression, he understood that he was worried about him, and then he smiled and said, "Oh, you said I'm fine. Isn't it interesting to watch me practice here? Go find Xiao Wu. What if they get into trouble?" He remembered that the work-study students were bullied by the ordinary students, but he didn't know if the time was staggered. After all, they stayed in the soul-hunting forest for 2 days. Tang San stood in front of Tang Lu and hesitated for a long time, then nodded, and then left the office in 3 steps. The sound of closing the door sounded, and the smile on Tang Lu's face slowly faded, and he stopped meditating, because he had never learned the method of cultivation. How should he restore his soul power? He closed his eyes and slowly immersed his mind, and then he came to the dark night sky again. Blue-black stars were scattered, and there was a dense cluster of stars in the distant sky, but there were 4 solitary stars scattered around him. One of them was sitting under him, and the other 2 were slowly moving in 2 different directions. There is one more. Wuhuan Palace. That's the way it is. Su Yintao reported everything he had experienced in this business to Mtlnovel. After listening, Mtlnovel squinted his eyes slightly and said nothing, as if he was thinking about something. After a long time, he sighed and said, "Let's leave it like this." "Aren't you going to continue the investigation, Master Mtlnovel?" Su Yintao asked respectfully. "No need. Although there are some aspects of this matter that cannot withstand scrutiny, but according to what you said, the child who is suspected of being innate with super soul power has a brain problem, and it sounds quite serious. Such a person, even if he becomes strong in the future, even after he wakes up, he can't be used by our Wuhuan Palace. Although, he knows how to hide his strength when he awakens, which shows that this child is not weak in intelligence. However, brain diseases are the most difficult to treat. Whether he can continue to live is uncertain. It's still a problem. So, let's leave this matter as it is. Go to Holy Soul Village now and see if you can call back the people who were sent in advance." Mtlnovel said calmly. "Yes." Su Yintao responded, and then retreated. It seems that the matter of Tang Lu having innate super soul power has been solved. Su Yintao, who received Mtlnovel's order, immediately set off on horseback. Of course, the horse he was riding was not an ordinary horse, but a trained 10-year-old spirit beast chasing the wind horse. Chasing the wind horse has no other specialties except that it can run extremely fast. Otherwise, Su Yintao would not have been able to catch up with the Wuhuan Temple team that had gone to Holy Soul Village a few hours in advance. Su Yintao covered nearly half of the distance from Nodding City to Holy Spirit Village within an hour, stopped the Spirit Hall team, and called them back, and at this moment, it happened to be the moment when Tang Lu returned to Nodding College. The sun sank in the sky, and then the sky gradually darkened into night. Tang Lu wore a black robe, with a hood covering most of his face, and then quietly walked out of the back door of Nodding College. In order to prevent others from seeing him, neither Grandmaster nor Tang San came out to see him off. They just said goodbye to each other in the office, and then Tang Lu left, taking advantage of the darkness. It was a good time to leave. After leaving Nodding College, Tang Lu was not in a hurry to leave. He walked towards the densely populated areas with a clear purpose, and finally stopped in a dark alley. After taking off his hood, he first looked around, and after confirming that no one was around, he spoke in a low voice. "Dad, are you there?" Quietly, there was another person behind Tang Lu. Tang Lu felt that the black robe on his body was fluttered by the sudden strong wind. He turned around and was startled when he saw a tall figure in the same black robe. The figure suddenly took action at this moment and covered Tang Lu's mouth, silencing his screams. Feeling the warmth from his palms, Tang Lu breathed a sigh of relief, then moved around the hand covering his mouth and hugged the figure's waist. The dark clouds in the sky also drifted away at this moment, and the covered moon immediately gave off its light. When the moonlight fell, the figure's unshaven beard became clear, and his face looked extremely decadent but still handsome. It was Tang Hao, suddenly being hugged by Tang Lu. His whole body froze, and then he reached out and patted Tang Lu's back gently. "Let's go," he said lightly, then he picked up Tang Lu and flew up at high speed. In the blink of an eye, he was at an altitude of 1,000 meters, flying towards the Holy Soul Village at high speed. The soul power penetrated the body, forming an invisible barrier to protect Tang Lu, resisting the strong wind generated during high-speed flight, as well as the icy cold in the sky. As for why Tang Hao appeared, we have to talk about it from a few days ago, that is, the day Tang San and Tang Lu left the Holy Soul Village. Tang Hao almost never stopped drinking the porridge that had not been reboiled in the pot, holding the edge of the iron pot with both hands, regardless of the high temperature coming from the pot. Dong, that the iron pot was smashed down by him, making a dull sound. He wiped his mouth fiercely, but at this time, due to the excessive movement, a small piece of white paper slowly fell from the clothes on his shoulders. Tang Hao's reaction was so great that he stretched out his hand and grabbed the note that had not yet fallen to the ground. Open it, and there is a line of small characters on it, which is very neat and beautiful. There weren't many words in that line. Tang Hao glanced at it and finished reading it. Then, his expression changed drastically. In a flash, the whole person disappeared into the house. In another pot was stewed a pheasant that no one cared about. Where Tang Hao was standing before, a piece of white paper slowly fell to the ground. There is a sentence written on it. "Dad, I actually have level 20 innate soul power, and the people from Wuhuan Palace seem to have discovered it." The signature is Tang Lu. However, a few seconds later, Tang Hao came back. This time he took away the pot and the chicken, along with the small note on the ground. The firewood in the stove was also blown out by the strong wind he brought. He disappeared into the room again, following Tang San, Tang Lu and old Jack from a distance. Of course, he's in the air. Chapter 18. Tang Hao was at a loss. You are listening at NovelFull.audio. He had been watching the two brothers in the sky beside Tang San and Tang Lu. Naturally, he saw Tang San becoming his disciple, Yu Jiang, whom he had met several times before. And he actually knelt down in front of the other party. Naturally, he also saw the master taking Tang San and Tang Lu to the soul-hunting forest to obtain soul rings. Naturally, he saw the datura snake that Tang San had killed alone for 100 years. Naturally, he also saw Tang Lu obtain the first spirit ring, and saw that Tang Lu already had 2/3 spirit rings that were beyond the knowledge of all spirit masters. Naturally, he also saw the spirit hull team chasing after the soul-hunting forest. In the air, he had been paying close attention to the situation below nervously. After seeing that Tang San and the master successfully fooled Su Yuntao, he also breathed a sigh of relief. After that, he began to worry about Tang Lu again, but Tang Lu really surprised him. This kid handled the traces like an experienced veteran. But maybe due to physical limitations due to age, or lack of time, there were still some flaws in the treatment of some marks, so he still helped. After seeing Tang Lu successfully evade the people in Wuhuan Palace, he breathed a sigh of relief again, but not long after, a Mandala snake that was more than 5,000 years old rushed out and launched an attack on Tang Lu. Tang Hao, who knew that his youngest son was an auxiliary soul master, but didn't know much about the actual combat power of his third martial soul, was about to rush out and smash the snake to death with a hammer, but Tang Lu's response made him stop again. Seeing that Tang Lu was no longer afraid of the Mandala snake under the influence of his first soul skill, Tang Hao also calmed down. He also wanted to see how Tang Lu would deal with this Mandala snake, although in his opinion, Tang Lu, who was only a great soul master, couldn't defeat Mandala snake, who was a soul sect. It was still possible to escape, not to mention that he was watching from the side. What's up? So later, he was blinded by Tang Lu's operations. What is that? Teleport? I haven't seen anyone's teleportation soul skill that can be used so seamlessly. Doesn't it consume soul power? Moreover, what shocked Tang Hao was that Tang Lu's teleportation speed was really too fast. Several times, Tang Lu kept teleporting around the Mandala snake. In Tang Hao's eyes, at that moment, the Mandala snake was surrounded by Tang Lu. It felt like he suddenly had more than a dozen little sons. Similar. Tang Hao was speechless for a while. Afterwards, Tang Hao saw that Tang Lu stopped teleporting, added a first soul skill to himself, and then walked to the side and sat down, as if he was about to practice, but not long after, Tang Hao sprayed, because he saw Tang Lu raise a hand, and then he made a fist, and the Mandala snake shattered. It exploded in the end. Fortunately, although Tang Hao was surprised, he still did not forget to save Tang Lu from the soul power explosion. The purple light exuding the aura of death arrived at Tang Lu's side in an instant. Although Tang Lu's soul power was almost exhausted, his consciousness was very clear. Seeing the purple light approaching, he couldn't do anything about it, because of the overdraft of soul power. He can't even use teleportation now. It was also the first time that he felt how close death was. To him, although he was poisoned to death by the cheating Hao Lan spell in his previous life, the feeling it gave him that time was completely different from now, or in other words, he didn't feel anything at all that time, but right now, he seemed to be able to feel that his life force was flowing away rapidly like water in the palm of his hand, dying. Tang Lu's mind went blank. There was only this sentence in his mind, and there was no time to think of anything else, but in the blink of an eye, he found that the purple light was far away from him. The originally strong purple light was now like a weak light. His thoughts were still sluggish, but not long after, Tang Lu found himself being held in someone's arms. Turning his head stiffly, he saw the other party's always cold expression. After another 2 seconds, Tang Lu's originally frozen brain resumed functioning, and then, a wave of grievance and fear rushed into his heart. Tears burst out of his eyes instantly. "Why did you come just now?" That as he cried, he hugged the man's neck, and who else could that person be if he wasn't Tang Hao? After all, Tang Lu was just a boy in his teens. In his previous life, although he had matured a little precociously, when had he ever faced the thrill of life and death? If he is still alone in this life as in his previous life, he will only become more mature after surviving such a fatal crisis, and can be more calm when encountering a fatal crisis next time. How could he be so rude? In addition, he had been dealing with a Mandala snake whose strength far exceeded his own. Although he appeared very relaxed, it was impossible to say that he was not nervous or afraid in his heart, because he was not. Be careful, it is the end of death. But the difference is that in this life, he has a father, a brother, and a mother who is reading a message for resurrection, which brings a touch of warmth to his originally lonely and cold heart, allowing him to finally truly realize that there is someone, the feeling of being able to rely on. Therefore, the moment he saw Tang Hao, he felt aggrieved, and then he cried in front of Tang Hao with confidence. And then he said, "Why did you come just now? That only when you have experienced the feeling of not having it will you become like this after getting it." That's people, complex people. Looking at Tang Lu who cried wow in his arms and hugged him, Tang Hao's cold expression froze, and he suddenly felt a little panicked. Indeed, Tang Hao was very incompetent and incomplete as a father. Tang San and Tang Lu both traveled through time and have never cried since they were born. Needless to say, Tang San was an adult in his previous life. And Tang Lu was also a 15-year-old high school student with a precocious mental age. In his original world, even ordinary high school students of the same age would hardly cry at the age of 15, let alone a helpless orphan like him. Therefore, Tang Hao has never experienced the days of coaxing a crying child, and he has no experience in this matter. So now, Tang Hao feels confused, panicked, a little heartbroken, and a little helpless. What to do? Now there are only these 4 words left in his mind. So, he, a grown man, just stood there in the forest, with a stiff look on his face, holding a crying child in his arms. If someone saw it, they would definitely be considered a human trafficker. Chapter 19. After returning home. You are listening at novelfull.audio. Fortunately, Tang Lu only vented his emotions and quickly recovered and gradually stopped crying. Then, because his soul power was exhausted and the tension in his heart relaxed, he leaned half of his face on Tang Hao's shoulder and fell asleep. I slept like this for nearly 3 hours. After waking up, Tang Lu found that Tang Hao had sent him to Notting College. They didn't say much. After Tang Lu left a mark on Tang Hao, he teleported to the master's office. Of course, there are some things that Tang San cannot know now, so he concealed Tang Hao's existence. Title Douluo's flying speed was extremely terrifying, not far behind Tang Lu's supersonic aircraft in his previous life. What's more, Tang Hao is still a level 95 Super Douluo. Of course, the Soul Masters on Douluo continent have not yet cultivated Soul Cores, so there is no such thing as Super Douluo or Ultimate Douluo. In less than half an hour, Tang Hao had completed the half-day's walk, and finally landed in their dilapidated house in the Holy Soul Village. Tang Hao walked into the room without saying a word, and Tang Lu followed him silently. After entering the familiar wooden house, Tang Lu felt that his heart, which was still a little uneasy, suddenly calmed down and his whole body relaxed. "I'm going to bed first," Tang Lu said, then walked towards his and Tang San's room. "Wait a moment." Tang Hao spoke, so Tang Lu stopped and turned around to look at Tang Hao, who had already pulled out a chair and sat down. "Is there anything else?" Tang Hao looked at him, and then said, "Have you thought about what to do in the future?" Tang Lu nodded and said calmly, "Well, I've thought about it. I'll follow you." "No." Tang Hao refused without thinking. Tang Lu looked at him sideways. The meaning in his eyes was very clear: you have no room to refuse. Tang Hao understood, so he frowned and said, "You can't keep up with me, and you can't find me." Hearing this, Tang Lu immediately smiled, and his handsome face and smile looked very charming for a while. In a daze, Tang Hao seemed to see the shadow of Ain in him. "You can try and see if I can find you," Tang Lu said with a smile, and immediately, 2 blue-black soul rings rose from his feet. The second circle of soul rings shone, and Tang Lu appeared in front of Tang Hao in an instant, looking directly into his eyes. "No matter where you are in this world, as long as my soul power is enough, I can immediately appear there. Around you." As he spoke, his blue-black eyes couldn't help but reveal a hint of pride. After a while, Tang Hao spoke, with a hint of helplessness in his tone, "You are still too weak now. If you follow me, I cannot guarantee your safety." "Really?" Tang Lu said, and then he didn't know what he was thinking about. He sat on his lap, and then hugged his neck, like 2 brothers. "It doesn't matter, I met you. If you can't beat me, I can take you and run with me." The second blue-black soul ring around him shone again, and immediately, Tang Lu and Tang Hao disappeared into a blue-black light at the same time, and then appeared at the place where Tang Lu stood before. There was a mark he quietly left. After killing the Mandala snake with the power of the mark, Tang Lu found that his understanding of how Lond mark had become much deeper. For example, now he can achieve indirect contact through other means in the system description, thereby leaving a mark. For example, he could leave a mark in advance on the chair Tang Hao was sitting on just now, and then after Tang Hao sat on it, as long as any part of Tang Hao's skin came into contact with the chair, Tang Lu could directly make the mark transferred to Tang Hao. When he entered the house, he made the Haolan mark stay in the shoes through the contact between the soles of his feet and the shoes, and then transferred it to the ground, which also satisfied the indirect contact of the skin. Therefore, he can now teleport here with Tang Hao, and only consume the first level of innate soul power. Tang Hao was surprised. He originally had a high opinion of Tang Lu's soul skill, but now it seems that he still underestimated Tang Lu's soul skill. "You can also teleport with others?" he said. It's not a big deal. No matter how dangerous it is, I can take you to escape, so that those who want to do us harm will not be able to catch up," Tang Lu said as he let go of Tang Hao. Because Tang Hao changed from a sitting position to a standing position after the teleportation, his whole body was now hanging on Tang Hao's body. Tang Lu, who was less than 1 meter tall, jumped off Tang Hao, who was nearly 2 meters tall. He almost fell down because he lost his balance, but luckily he held Tang Hao's hand in time. Tang Hao pulled him back with a little force. "Now, can I follow you?" Tang Lu looked up at him and said. Tang Hao's expression froze, and then he spoke calmly. "What level is your soul power now?" "Level 24. "Yes." After fighting the Mandala snake, Tang Lu's soul power increased by another level. If you can break through level 30 within half a year, I will allow you to follow me. Tang Lu blinked his eyes, with a hint of deep meaning on his face. Do you keep your word? Tang Hao nodded, yes. Then you won't leave suddenly during these 6 months, right? Tang Hao hesitated for a while. No. Tang Lu had an I knew it expression on his face, then turned around and walked back to the room. I'm going to practice, he said without even turning his head. After Tang Lu opened the door curtain of the room and walked in, Tang Hao had a complicated look in his eyes. It seemed that his youngest son's talent was quite powerful, at least better than him, not even comparable to Tang San. After all, it is an unprecedented three-life martial spirit in the mainland. The soul skills of the third martial soul are so beyond common sense. Thinking of Tang Lu's soul skills, Tang Hao couldn't help but fall into his thoughts again. If Xiao Lu had this ability at that time, or if he had this ability, Yin wouldn't. After a while, he shook his head mockingly. What were you thinking? At that time, Xiao San and Xiao Lu were just newborn babies. Speaking of which, at that time, he was still holding Xiao San with one hand, and tied Xiao Lu with the vines that Yin had broken away from behind his back. With his remaining right hand, he wielded the clear sky hammer to fight against several titled Douluo and Soul Douluo from Wuhuan Palace. There is also the Soul Saint. Thinking of this, there was a hint of bitterness on the corners of Tang Hao's lips, but at this time, Tang Lu opened a corner of the door curtain again, stuck his head out and said, Dad, I haven't learned how to meditate. How can I cultivate my soul power? Tang Hao. After a moment, he sighed and walked towards Tang Lu's room. Come on, I'll teach you. Chapter 20. As a bug, it's natural to practice bug as well. You are listening at novelfull.audio. In the room, Tang Hao asked Tang Lu to sit cross-legged on the bed and then put a small amount of his soul power into Tang Lu's body. He first controlled his own soul power to circulate in Tang Lu's meridians for a week, and then ignored him. Let him practice on his own. Fortunately, he also knew that his son was careless, so he watched from the side, always paying attention to the situation in Tang Lu's body to prevent him from going into the wrong meridians and causing problems in the operation of his soul power and going crazy. Although Tang Lu had a good memory, the meridians in his body were too complicated, and the meditation technique Tang Hao taught him also covered a wide range of areas, so there were mistakes in the first few times. Fortunately, Tang Hao immediately he discovered it and asked Tang Lu to correct it. In this way, after Tang Lu allowed his soul power to circulate in his body for a week, he entered a state of trance. Seeing this, Tang Hao also nodded, with a look of satisfaction on his face. Xiao Lu gave him quite a few surprises, recalling that when he first practiced soul power, he let the soul power circulate throughout his body for 10 weeks before it became smooth and entered a state of trance, but now, Tang Lu had entered samadhi just once, which really surprised and delighted him. At the same time, there is also a slight sense of melancholy. It seems that Xiao San and Xiao Lu can avenge their family's feud with Wuhuan Palace. Tang Hao sat down cross-legged beside Tang Lu's bed and meditated silently. Although it was almost impossible to get into trouble after entering samadhi, for the sake of safety, it was better for him to guard Tang Lu tonight. At the same time, Tang Lu, who was in meditation, encountered a small situation. It can't be called trouble, because his mind is now completely immersed in controlling the movement of soul power, and other than that, he can't feel anything else. It was at this time that the system began to act like a monster in his mind. What is vast and boundless is Hao, what is thick and powerful is also Hao, what is endlessly vital is blue, what is vast and boundless is also blue, what changes destiny against the sky is law, what regulates will is also law, what is ever-changing is magic. Numerology Chi-Luck is also a skill. Now, please join me in silence. Then the system kept flashing the previous paragraph in Tang Lu's mind like a barrage. Originally, Tang Lu couldn't feel anything except soul power, but this sentence was like a weak thought, just like counting in your mind. Once you count too many, it would be difficult not to divert your attention. Stop and keep counting. Now, Tang Lu was in such a situation. Unconsciously, these words were all in his mind. As a result, the speed of the soul power in his body increased quietly. The next day, early morning, when the sun peeked out of the eastern sky and gave out the first ray of morning light, Tang Lu woke up from his trance. The moment he opened his eyes, the blue-black light that originally flashed in his eyes instantly disappeared, taking a deep breath, and then exhaling it slowly, the turbid air that had accumulated in his chest. All night formed a white line that curled up in front of him. Wherever he looked, there was no Tang Hao, so he subconsciously released the third spirit, and then activated the second spirit skill. The blue-black light flashed, and the scene in front of him changed suddenly, and he came to Tang Hao's room. Tang Lu's eyes immediately fell on Tang Hao, who was sleeping on the bed. Slob. After muttering, Tang Lu withdrew his martial spirit and walked out of the room. However, his mood became better because Tang Hao kept his promise and did not leave quietly. While humming songs from his past life, he went to find rice at home to prepare porridge. As a man in the 21st century, well, a young man, cooking is just a basic operation, not to mention that he even learned how to cook in his previous life. Now it's just a matter of cooking some porridge. It's all at your fingertips, and it's definitely more delicious than what Tang San cooked. What, you ask, since his cooking tastes better, why didn't he cook it before? The question is like, if you clean your own bedroom at school cleaner than your mother cleans your own bedroom, will you clean your own bedroom at home? Anyway, I can't. Funny. The glistening rice fell into the pot, and then Tang Lu trotted out of the house, preparing to find some ingredients. Although he doesn't know much about the plants on Douluo continent, he has Dunyang, assistant system. Under the guidance of the system, Tang Lu picked some wild fruits, wild vegetables, and many plants that could be used for seasoning, and even caught a hare. Therefore, in a certain respect, this assistant system is quite useful. System, let me ask you again, do you really have no system space or anything? Tang Lu held the things he picked in his arms, carrying the hare on his back with a straw rope, and then walked towards home. No. The system gave the same answer. I'm not talking about you, you are simply the hot chicken in your system world. Tang Lu thought with hatred. If the host wants a storage space. Although I don't have one, I can teach the host to make one. After a while, the system spoke again, but the tone was hesitant, as if it was looking for something. Tang Lu's eyes lit up, and then he said, really? If the host is willing, it can be done now. The system's hesitant tone disappeared, and it returned to a smooth and fluent manner that showed no emotion at all. How to do it? Now that I don't have rare metals and I don't have a carving knife, what should I do? Tang Lu asked curiously. In his understanding, the system should teach him the core magic circle in Dou Er to make a soul guide. It's very simple. Please first find a stone with a volume of about 3 cubic centimeters. Tang Lu, stone. Are you sure you're not kidding me? If the host doesn't believe it, then just don't do it. Tang Lu. After a while, he said helplessly, I believe you. Then he put down his things and started looking around for a suitable stone. Of course, he did not forget to tie up the hare. After searching for about 3 minutes, he found a stone that met the system's requirements. In fact, if the system had not prompted him, he would have been very vague about the concept of 3 cubic centimeters. If it was a regular shape, it would be fine, just use your fingernail to measure it, but as for this stone, he had no choice. After finding the stones, Tang Lu followed the system's instructions and picked a few calla lily leaves, then wrapped them into a bowl and set them aside for later use. Then, under the instructions of the system, he found a bamboo with sharp blades unique to Douluo continent, picked one of its leaves, and broke off a small branch of it. Finally, he returned to the calla lily bowl, cut his finger with a bamboo leaf, and squeezed the blood into the calla lily bowl.